Growing up in a small town in Georgia, everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew Father Michael. He was the priest of the local Catholic church, St. Gabriel's, and to us, he was more than a religious leader. He was a saint. He had a calm, commanding voice, a gaze that seemed to pierce straight through your soul. When he preached, even the kids sat still. When he prayed, people cried. Some claimed miracles happened just by touching his hands. I was just a kid when I started serving as an altar boy. I remember the pride I felt every Sunday morning, dressing in my robe, walking beside Father Michael toward the altar, holding the cross. "David," he would tell me, placing a hand on my shoulder, "you're special. I see something powerful in you." As a boy, I believed him. I thought maybe, just maybe, God had a plan for me. But whispers started to spread. A boy named Josh, who had served before me, once told his parents he didn't feel safe around Father Michael, that sometimes the priest said weird things to him during confession. His family dismissed it as childish nonsense. Then there was Mrs. Linda, the church cleaner. She said she saw Father Michael late at night in the chapel, lighting black candles and reading from old, strange books. But everyone brushed her off. "She's old and confused," they said. Looking back, I realize how easy it was for the town to silence truth when it was inconvenient. Nobody wanted to believe anything bad about a man who spoke with such authority about heaven and hell. Josh eventually moved away. Mrs. Linda stopped coming to church, but Father Michael remained, strong, untouchable, worshipped. He became a local celebrity, hosted charity events, visited schools, was invited to radio shows. People came from other towns just to hear him preach. But something inside me started to shift. I couldn't explain it. A cold feeling when I was near him. A strange emptiness in his eyes. A discomfort during prayer. I stopped serving when I turned 16. I drifted away from the church, moved to Atlanta for work, tried to forget everything. For years, I avoided anything religious. I told myself I still believed in God, but not in men, especially not those who claimed to speak for him. But no matter how far I ran, I couldn't shake the memory of that man's hand on my head, and the hollow look behind his smile. Then one night, everything changed. It started with a nightmare, but it didn't feel like a dream. It felt real, because in that nightmare I saw Father Michael again, and this time he was screaming from the depths of hell. I hadn't prayed in years. After I moved to Atlanta, I got caught up in work, bills, late nights, cheap food, and the numb rhythm of surviving. Church became a distant memory. God, a silent background presence I avoided eye contact with. But that night, something in me cracked. I had a rough shift delivering packages in the pouring rain. I got home soaked, exhausted, and frustrated. I threw my keys on the counter, collapsed onto my old couch, and stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above me. For some reason, I opened the drawer of the nightstand next to the couch. Inside, dusty and almost forgotten, was a small pocket Bible. My grandma gave it to me when I was 13. I hadn't opened it since I left home. I flipped it open randomly. The page landed on Psalm 139. "Even if I make my bed in hell, you are there." I froze. It felt like someone punched me in the chest. I looked around my tiny apartment, heart racing. And then, out of nowhere, I dropped to my knees. I didn't plan to. It just happened, as if something pushed me down, and I prayed. Not a fancy prayer, not one of those scripted ones from Sunday school, just a broken whisper from a cracked soul. "God, if you're still listening, if you haven't given up on me, show me something. Show me the truth, even if it hurts." I cried, quietly. I don't even remember laying down. I don't remember closing my eyes. But I remember what happened next. At first, it felt like sleep paralysis. My body was frozen. I couldn't move. My ears were ringing. The air around me turned ice cold. Then came the sensation of falling. Not fast, but deep, like being slowly pulled underwater by something with claws. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Whispers filled my ears, not in English, not in any language I knew. They were guttural, mocking, like dozens of voices layered on top of each other. And then, a light, not warm, not heavenly, cold, silver, pale. A figure stepped out of it, cloaked in white, face covered by a veil. They didn't speak, just extended a hand toward me. The second I touched it, everything around me vanished. The darkness, the voices, replaced by something far worse. I was standing in a place that didn't feel like a dream at all. It felt like I had entered the mouth of hell itself. The moment I opened my eyes, I knew I wasn't on Earth anymore. The ground beneath me looked like cracked glass mixed with charcoal. The sky above wasn't a sky. It was a swirling ceiling of black smoke and ash, like a storm stuck in time. The air was thick. It smelled of burning plastic, sulfur, and something sickly sweet, like decaying flowers at a funeral. Every breath felt like inhaling guilt. The figure in white stood ahead of me, floating just above the ground. It didn't speak, but I knew I had to follow. We moved through a canyon of broken altars and shattered stained glass windows. Crosses were upside down, bent, melted. Hymnals floated in the air, torn and burned, their pages whispering corrupted scripture. On the horizon, I saw what looked like a massive crater, wide, bottomless, and pulsing with red light. It was alive, breathing, groaning like a sleeping beast. As we got closer, I started hearing voices, not screams, confessions, endless desperate confessions shouted into the void. I lied in his name. I used the offering money for myself. I touched what was sacred and made it filth. I wanted to cover my ears, but I couldn't move my hands. They were stiff, frozen by some invisible force. Around the crater were thousands, maybe millions, of figures. Some were kneeling, others crawling, many chained to pillars of fire. Every one of them wore something familiar: priest collars, choir robes, suits with lapel pins that read, "Pastor." My knees buckled. These weren't murderers or atheists or drug lords. These were the faithful, or at least they used to be. Then I saw a massive stone sign rising from the center of the crater, carved in a language I didn't recognize but understood in my bones. The Valley of the Traitors. The moment I read it, the ground beneath me started to vibrate. The air grew hotter. The whispers became screams. The figure in white stopped walking and finally spoke in a voice that echoed like a wind through hollow cathedrals. This is where they dwell, those who wore the robe but served the serpent. My heart dropped. I couldn't breathe. My legs gave out completely, and I collapsed to the floor of ash. That's when I heard it. One voice cut through all the others, familiar, human, and filled with torment. David! The name echoed like thunder. I knew that voice. It was impossible, but I knew it. I turned my head slowly toward the sound, and there, bound in chains, screaming from the center of the abyss, was Father Michael. David! That voice shattered me. It didn't just echo through the air, it tore through my chest. It was him, Father Michael, screaming my name like his soul depended on it. I turned slowly. I didn't want to see him. Part of me hoped it was someone else, but deep down I knew there he was, chained to a column of scorched bones, his body slumped, his robe shredded and clinging to blistered skin. His once proud face was barely recognizable, half melted, blackened, his eyes hollow and smoking. But even like that, he looked straight at me. David, help me, please. My knees gave out again. I dropped to the ash-covered ground, paralyzed. Not from fear, from heartbreak. I had idolized this man. He baptized me, he taught me to pray, and now he was burning before me. The chains around his body weren't metal. They were made of hands, black, twisted hands with nails like claws gripping him, crawling over him, digging into his flesh. Every time he tried to move, they pulled tighter. "I didn't think this was real," he cried. "I didn't think he'd really punish me." The air around him shimmered like heat off pavement. Shadows danced behind him, whispering blasphemies in broken Latin. One of the hands reached up and yanked his jaw open wide. His scream shook the entire crater. I wanted to run, but I couldn't leave. Not yet. He turned to me again, blood running from his eyes. "They lied to me. The other priests. They said it was just tradition. Symbols." "What did you do?" I finally managed to whisper. His voice cracked. "I preached in his name, but my prayers were for someone else. I said amen to the wrong master." My blood ran cold. "I didn't believe hell was real," he sobbed, "until I woke up here." The figure in white beside me remained silent, watching, letting me absorb every ounce of the horror. Father Michael stretched one last time toward me. "David, please, tell the truth. Don't let others end up here." And then, without warning, one of the shadows behind him surged forward, slicing through the air. A massive clawed hand dragged him downward into the abyss. His scream faded into the fire, and I was left there alone, with only ashes beneath my feet and the echo of a name I used to trust, just as I thought he'd been pulled into silence forever. His voice returned, not from his mouth, from everywhere. The walls of the valley began to tremble. The ground split open beneath where his body had vanished, and rising from that pit came whispers, his own voice reciting the sins he never confessed on earth. I held prayer meetings and cursed his name before they ended. I took the offerings from the poor and bought silence with it. I stood on the pulpit and made a mockery of the cross. I covered my ears, but it was useless. The confessions crawled into my mind like smoke under a locked door. They weren't meant for sound. They were meant for judgment. And then a vision opened in the air before me, like a curtain of fire being torn apart. Inside that flaming veil, I saw him, Father Michael, younger, healthier, confident. He was inside his old church, lighting candles not for God, but in front of a statue of something else. A horned figure draped in priestly robes. He placed a black rose on the altar and whispered, "In your name, grant me the words that control the weak." My stomach turned. The next image showed him in a confession booth. A young girl sat behind the screen, sobbing. "Father, someone touched me," she cried. "Someone in our church." Michael leaned close to the screen. "God forgives my child," he said. But his eyes glowed red for a moment, and he smiled. More scenes followed, dark baptisms, fake healings, manipulated miracles, all of them carefully staged to build his empire of lies. And worse, behind every scene stood figures in the shadows, faceless but present, feeding him power. Demons, servants of the very hell he denied existed. He was no longer a man of God. He was a contractor of the devil dressed in holiness. As the vision faded, I fell to my knees. I felt sick, betrayed, not just by him, but by every person who protected him, by the blind system, by the silence. The figure in white finally spoke. "These are the ones who turn his name into a business, who use the altar as a stage, who wear the robe but speak with forked tongues." "Then why show me this?" I cried out. "Why me?" "Because you asked," the figure said. "You prayed for truth, and the truth is not always safe." I looked back at the scorched ground where Father Michael had vanished. His voice was gone now, but what he left behind would haunt me forever. The truth had a name, and it burned. I tried to walk away from that cursed crater, but the valley wouldn't let me. Every step felt heavier. The air turned colder, then hotter, as if it couldn't decide how to punish me. My vision blurred, and ash clung to my skin like a second suffocating layer. Then I heard it, a voice soft and high-pitched. "Are you lost too?" I turned, expecting to see some monstrous creature wearing a child's voice. But no, it really was a little girl, maybe 8 or 9 years old. She wore a white Sunday dress stained with soot. Her blonde curls were matted. Her eyes, however, were not those of a child. They were old, ancient, filled with sorrow no child should carry. "What's your name?" I asked cautiously. "Emily," she said. "I used to go to St. Jude's back in Kansas." My heart sank. That was one of the churches involved in a major abuse scandal. I remembered seeing it on the news years ago. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I died," she said simply. "But I didn't go to heaven because I knew too much." I stared at her, unsure if I'd heard her right. "They called me a liar," she continued, "said I was possessed. But I saw things. I saw Father Randall go down to the basement and draw circles on the floor. I saw him give blood to something that didn't look human." "Emily," I whispered, "what they did to you?" "It's okay," she interrupted. "God didn't forget me. That's why I'm still here." "Still here?" She reached into her pocket and pulled out a rosary, but the beads were black and the cross was upside down. "Where did you get that?" I asked, backing away. "I didn't," she said. "Father Randall gave it to me, said it would keep me quiet, but it didn't." Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't cry. "Now I stay here, and I warn the others." "Warn them?" I asked, confused. "That not all who preach are holy, that even children can smell sulfur in the sermons." She turned away and began walking toward a cracked wall covered in scratched-out names. With her small hand, she began writing a new one. Father Michael. The ash around us swirled, and for a brief moment I felt the presence of something divine, something watching, mourning. Emily looked back one last time. "Tell them what you saw, David. Tell them before more children end up down here with me." And just like that, she vanished into the smoke. After Emily disappeared into the smoke, I found myself surrounded once again by suffocating darkness. Then, without warning, I saw it. A soft golden glow rising in the distance. It pulsed gently, like the morning sun peeking through stained glass windows, warm, comforting, pure. For the first time since arriving in this place, I felt hope. The light grew brighter, taking shape. It formed into a man, tall, glowing, dressed in white robes. He had long hair, piercing blue eyes, and a peaceful smile. He looked just like the images of Jesus I'd grown up seeing in Sunday school. He raised his hand, palm open. "David," he said, in a voice like a hymn, "you've suffered enough." My heart leapt. Tears stung my eyes. Are you him?" "I am the one who brings peace," the figure said. "You've seen the darkness. Come now, into the light." I took a step forward. Every part of me wanted to believe, wanted to leave this nightmare behind. "You've done your part," the figure continued. "Forget the screams, forget the fire, let it all go. There is no judgment for you here." Something about his words felt off. Too easy, too smooth. "What about Emily?" I asked. "The little girl. She's still suffering." The figure paused, just for a moment, but I saw it. His smile faltered, his eyes flickered, and the golden glow around him dimmed. "She made her choice," he said coldly. "Don't make the same mistake." Suddenly, the warmth turned sharp. The air around him began to crackle. The golden light bled into red, and the scent of roses turned to sulfur. "You're not him," I whispered. The figure snarled, and his face twisted, melting like candle wax to reveal something monstrous. His skin peeled back to bone, horns curled from his skull, wings of black fire spread wide behind him. "I am the God of your leaders," he hissed, "the shepherd of the blind, the father of lies in robes of light." A blast of darkness shot from his mouth and slammed into my chest, throwing me back like a rag doll. I crashed against the burning rocks, the wind knocked out of me. When I opened my eyes, the false light was gone, but something had changed. On my chest, a mark had been burned into my skin, a twisted symbol, one I had seen before. It matched the one carved into the altar in Father Michael's secret rituals. I realized then, the thing that attacked me was the true master of many preachers and priests back on earth, and most of them didn't even know it. I limped through the valley, still shaken from my encounter with the false light. My chest burned where the mark had been seared into me. It throbbed like it had a pulse of its own. Ash fell from the sky like grey snow. The air buzzed with whispers, some in English, others in languages long forgotten. Then I heard a deep groan, metallic, heavy, like something ancient struggling to move. I followed the sound until I saw him, a man suspended in the air by thick, rusted chains. His body was gaunt, his skin cracked like old parchment. Long white hair draped over his face, and his arms were stretched wide in a crucifixion pose. When I stepped closer, his eyes opened, milky, glowing faintly. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, his voice echoing like thunder in a cathedral. "I didn't choose this," I replied. "God showed me, or something pretending to." He studied me for a moment. "Then maybe you were meant to find me. Who are you?" "My name is Jonathan. I was once a theologian. I studied ancient texts, and I warned the church that they were misusing his name. What happened? They called me a heretic, said I was questioning authority. I wasn't. I was questioning corruption." The chains rattled as he exhaled. "I found proof, documents hidden by early church leaders, warnings about idols, twisted doctrines, rituals borrowed from pagan cults. But they buried the truth, and buried me along with it." "They killed you?" I asked. "They excommunicated me, and then I disappeared. My name was erased, but I kept speaking out online, underground, until I died in a fire started by someone who didn't like what I knew." I stood frozen. "You're saying the church has known and kept the truth hidden?" He nodded. "Not all churches, but the most powerful ones? Yes. Some leaders don't worship God. They worship power, and they'll use any name, any book, any ritual to keep it." The chains glowed red as he spoke. Each word seemed to anger the pit itself. "Why are you here then?" I asked. "You tried to tell the truth." "Because I let pride twist me," he said, with pain in his voice. "I started thinking I was the only one who saw clearly. I stopped praying. I stopped loving. I became what I hated, bitter and arrogant." "So what now?" I asked. "Are you stuck here forever?" "I don't know," he whispered. "But maybe if someone finally listens, maybe the truth won't die with me." Suddenly, the chains around him trembled. A faint light flickered over his chest. For a second, I saw a symbol, different from the others, not demonic, something older, holier. Before I could ask, the ground shook again, and a voice boomed in the distance. "Enough!" I looked up. A storm of darkness rolled over the horizon. Something was coming, and Jonathan closed his eyes, saying only one thing: "Run!" I ran. Not out of fear, but instinct, like every bone in my body knew what was coming. The valley trembled beneath my feet. The air thickened, turning into something like hot syrup. The ash fell faster now, stinging my eyes and coating my skin in burning layers. Behind me, I heard the chains snapping, not Jonathan's, but others, dozens, maybe hundreds. Something ancient had been unleashed. The whispers in the air turned into screams, deep, guttural, and inhuman. They echoed from the cracked walls, from the fire rivers, from below my very steps. I glanced back once and saw them. Creatures barely shaped like men crawling out of pits, some with wings made of blades, others with mouths where their eyes should be. All of them running, flying, crawling toward me with only one goal: silence the witness. I clutched the burn on my chest. It glowed faintly, as if reacting to their presence. Lightning cracked across the sky, black lightning splitting the crimson clouds. The light didn't illuminate. It devoured. I stumbled, fell into a pit of bones. Hands reached up, grabbing at my legs, whispering things I couldn't understand but felt in my soul. Liar, traitor, you saw too much. I kicked free and climbed out, only to face something even worse. A towering figure made entirely of eyes, mouths, and crosses upside down. Its voice wasn't heard. It was felt. Your testimony ends here. I screamed for help, not even knowing who to call. Then, through the chaos, a bell rang. A single clear bell, like a church bell. Real, pure. The demons around me froze. Even the sky held its breath. Then the bell rang again and again, 3 times. A blinding column of white light pierced the valley, striking just ahead of me. A doorway opened. No, a tear in reality itself. Through it, I saw a figure, hooded, tall, holding a staff of gold and fire. The creatures hissed, retreated. The storm faltered. The figure raised one hand, and the burn on my chest pulsed once, then extinguished. David, he spoke, calm and powerful. You've seen enough. Come. I didn't ask who he was. I just obeyed. As I stepped into the light, the valley behind me collapsed into chaos. The screams followed me until they became silence. I opened my eyes, gasping for air. The smell of incense hit me first, then the cold touch of polished wood beneath my back. I was lying at the altar of my church. A crowd had gathered. Familiar faces stared down at me, confused, frightened, weeping. Some were praying out loud. Others stood frozen in silence. David? It was Pastor Luke kneeling beside me. Are you okay? I couldn't speak yet. My throat burned. My chest throbbed where the mark had been. Then I looked at my hands. They were covered in soot. My fingers trembled. I whispered, I saw hell. The church went still. I sat up slowly. Tears filled my eyes, not just from pain, but from the weight of what I carried. I saw our old priest, Father Michael. He was there, chained, screaming in the Valley of Traitors. Gasps erupted from the congregation. An old woman fainted. Someone dropped a Bible. I saw a little girl, Emily. She was left behind because no one believed her. My voice grew stronger, and I saw false light, false angels, false shepherds. I stood, trembling. Some churches are no longer houses of God. They're thrones for pride, money, and demons wearing white robes. Pastor Luke stepped back, pale as a ghost. And yet, I said, tears now running freely, God did not abandon me. Even in the fire, even among demons, he called me out. He showed me mercy. I raised my face toward the cross. He showed me truth and gave me a mission. People wept. Some dropped to their knees. Others whispered prayers they hadn't said in years. I'm not here to condemn, I said. I'm here to awaken. Outside, thunder rumbled. Inside, something shifted. I felt it. Heaven had entered that room, and deep in my soul, one message echoed. Tell them, before it's too late.